tell people the success within our family has been, we have roughly just over 800 employees in all our companies, all of our subsidiaries. And the reason we're still a family business is there's 4 McDonald's in Richmond. It's not a birthright. It's not, you know, it's not something that is just going to be assumed. And actually, they came up with this when I got out of school. When I graduated, I figured I'd come back and have a company car, an expense account, a corner office. Instead, I got a job, and I was told to go someplace else. And literally, we do that within our family. Go someplace else for at least 5 years. And if in fact if you can bring something back, okay, and we have an opening, we don't create jobs for anybody. If we have something that you're qualified to do, we'll talk to you. We'll give you an opportunity. But the fact that an organization such as ours that's so old, 155 years old, we've been able to promote people within that, so that you don't necessarily, you know, but my predecessor as president was not a McDonald's. And before that, my uncle was president. Before him, there were 4 presidents that were not McDonald's. So, I mean, and the reason I'm president is because I missed a meeting. They all did it to me. But literally, you know, we transitioning from one generation to the next is difficult. It really is. My father died very young. My uncle, however, was there for a while, and a couple of other uncles. There were 4 McDonald's basically in the previous generation as well. And it's difficult at times for people to let go, especially those people that helped build it for so long, and you know, the bootstrappers, if you will. Now, we all got a pretty good start. We had a great foundation with what ABI started for us, but it's difficult for people to let go and back up. You know, and I don't know that I'll have that problem at some point. But at some point, you just have to make a call and say, it's time for me to leave.
Jerry, you have a kind of a similar story here. You're a bitterman in a Gator operation. You want to talk just a little bit about your role in?
Yeah, it's been really interesting. When Dwayne decided to get out, Scott's father, we lost Dwayne, Jack, and Ed, our 3 founding fathers, and each one of those guys had 35 to 40 years of experience, all in a year and a half. And Dwayne pretty much just reached in his pocket and threw Scott the keys and said, "Here, make it work." Wow. It was tough for a little bit, a real learning experience. And now Scott's got a couple sons that are just starting with the business, and we're making sure that we handle that significantly different. We have a very, they'll probably end up with the business someday, but what we're doing is we have a plan in place, a 10-year and a 15 and a 20-year plan to work those kids into the business, because we know that the success rate of 3rd-generation companies is very, very low. It's less than 5%. So we're addressing it too. That's a great question.
Yes, in the back.
Thinking about ABI's public policy role, what are a couple of the biggest challenges you face from a public policy standpoint?
From our business standpoint, first and foremost, it's probably running a foundry. The environmental laws are a real struggle at times. We were fortunate because we as a company built our new facility in 1983, and were able to incorporate everything that at least at that time was on the books in terms of emission controls and environmental standards and stuff. And actually, the EPA came into our foundry and said, you know, we've got these rules out there, and we've never been able to find anybody that could meet them, and we actually could. But they continue to change and continue to make those more difficult every year. So from that standpoint, I think the environmental issues are a big part of it.
I'd answer that the same way. We've got a system in place that we chromate dip, chem film parts is what it's called. So we've really got to watch our zinc output, and so that's probably our biggest concern.
We have time for one more question. Yes.
You said you know heck more.
I've been to your plant and I've seen you have a lot of new innovative equipment and you're buying more.
Mm-hmm.
Has that made you more reach more markets, or is that just been something as more of a marketing tool for your first company?
It's done both. I'm not going to say so much for the foreign competition. It does more for our to keep us current and keep us with the existing competitors that we have. At the same time, it's to increase our capacity and our flexibility, without a doubt. If the customer knows that our lead times, where they used to be maybe 5 or 6 weeks, are now 5 and 6 days, it's a huge advantage. It just blows other people away. They're wondering, how are you doing this? That's where it's coming in. The thing is, it is an investment though. I mean, that unit that you guys just saw up there, it's 1.8 million. You know, it's a lot of money for a company our size. And we just bought another one. And it all adds up. It's all about getting that customer what he needs and listening to him. So yeah, I think it's been more competitive.
And from any manufacturer's standpoint, new equipment, the technology, and the repeatability of the new equipment, the quality has so far surpassed what we used to make on turret lathes and some of the old equipment that was around our factory for 50 years. You know, and as a Scotsman, we never got rid of anything. We kept trying to build stuff on this stuff. But it's taken many years for us to do that. But the equipment that you saw there is very similar to some of the stuff that we incorporate in our plant. And the same thing, the parts come off every time. The repeatability is there. You don't have to have as qualified a machinist to operate it. You need somebody who can run a computer, but you don't need the guy that, you know, that they used to work down the shop for 50 years on a slide rail system and know he took a hammer to the side of it every 50th part he ran just to get the thing back into alignment. So you don't have that anymore. The technology is so far above what my ancestors, what the previous generation of our family did. It's really improved quality.
That's the quality's been fantastic off the machines. I use the analogy with our team is that, well, they say, well, I only scrapped one part out. And I'll use the analogy as, well, when you go over to Fairway and you buy that loaf of bread, you want to make sure that there's no mold on that bread, right? You trust that supplier, that there's no mold on it. You want it fresh. That customer expects it to be right the first time.
Well, Mike and Jerry, I thank you both very much for your contributions. We are finishing up now at about 10 minutes to 4 so that we can all get over to the big room, I presume, where the governor will be arriving shortly if he hasn't already arrived.
Grand ballroom, 4 o'clock, please.
Fantastic. Thank you all for
I tell them this book. Yeah.
I'll track him down here somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's a long time.
This is one that's always there in my mind.
That's got
You're good.
throw this in here.